I had an email exchange with an actual sound professional from the film industry, and he suggested a few things. One was adding lights to the game, not just for the player to avoid the physical light itself, but also to avoid casting a shadow into the camera's field of view. It took me a bit of time to figure out how to do this, and I settled on the following. First, I give the camera a collision mesh, which roughly corresponds with the current field of view. If the player is within this collider, I then do a line trace to determine whether or not the camera can actually see the player. I then do a few traces across the width of the player in case they're partially obscured. Second, I give each light a collision mesh, which roughly corresponds with its current field of view. Again, if the player is within this collider, I do a line trace to determine whether or not the light is in fact hitting the player. If it is, I can continue this line trace to see if it's hitting the camera's collider. If it is, then the player is considered casting a visible shadow. While my spotlight actors contain an actual shadow casting light source, I wanted a way to more precisely show the player where these camera and light colliders are. I tried several approaches over several days and settled on a simple one, by drawing the bounds of the collider as a visible preview mesh in the world with a transparent material applied. I have plans to generate these preview meshes dynamically in order to reflect when world geometry obscures a light or camera and allow for a changing field of view during camera zooms. Here's an early example of this being run in a test environment. It runs quite slowly, probably too slowly for real-time use, but I may be able to use this technique to bake light collider shapes ahead of time. Then, I'd only have to generate the camera's shape each frame. Considering how dynamic the camera typically is, I'll probably have to do that anyway. With all of this integrated, I realized I had only made an old problem worse. At this point, while the game was played from a top-down perspective, it was still using a conventional perspective projection camera setup. Think a camera with a long zoom lens high above the scene pointing down. This presents some problems when trying to align objects below the camera if they're at different distances from the camera. Here's a diagram to show you what I mean. We have two spots on the ground, a microphone held in the air, and a camera high above. From the side, we can see that the mic is directly above spot A, but from the perspective of the camera high above, it appears that the mic is above spot B. Now imagine playing Boom Operator, a game about aligning a microphone above targets at various and changing heights below the microphone. This misalignment problem was why I added the target and crosshair shapes to the HUD in the first place. The added misalignment of camera and light preview meshes was the last straw. So, I switched to an orthographic projection instead. If perspective projection works like a camera, orthographic projection works more like a photocopier or flatbed scanner, causing an effect where you're looking straight on for the entire image without any perspective warping. Of course, this created a new problem. As you can imagine, the simple tile set I was using to create my maps contained vertical walls. Well, vertical walls are invisible when viewed from a top-down orthographic perspective. So, I had to create a variant of the tile set, with the bottom of each wall piece further out from the wall than the top. This, while kind of funky looking when viewed in perspective, looks pretty good in-game. And with that, we have the latest build of Boom Operator. Thanks for checking it out.